Friday. We're becoming more well read. Friday one with you. Ready to go ahead and lay it down, man. But I know we're chapter 17. Let me see. We're trying to figure out what the recap was. Them boys going down. Icarus going down. What goes up must come down, and Steve appears to be coming down at the moment. They went ahead with the commercial that they thought was bad, and it ended up being bad, and they got what they thought. Yeah, they was right. But and Steve is acting like a baby. He a toddler. But let's hop Tyler. But he 30 years old. That's where we're starting at. Page 188. So turning 30 is a milestone for most people, especially those of the generation that proclaimed that it would never trust anyone over that age. To celebrate his own 30th in February 1985, Jobs threw a lavishly formal but also playful black tie and tennis shoes. But also playful. Black tie and tennis shoes. Party for 1,000 in the ballroom of the St. Francis Hotel in San Francisco. The invitation read, "There's an old Hindu saying that goes, in the first 30 years of your life, you make your habits. For the last 30 years of your life, your habits make you. Come help me celebrate mine." One table featured software moguls including Bill Gates and Mitch Kapoor. Another had old friends such as Elizabeth Holmes, who brought as her date a woman dressed in a tuxedo. Andy Hertzfeld and Burrell Smith had rented tuxes and wore floppy tennis shoes, which made it all the more memorable when they danced to the Strauss waltzes played by the San Francisco Symphony Orchestra. Ella Fitzgerald provided the entertainment as Bob Dylan had declined. She sang mainly from her standard repertoire, though occasionally tailoring a song like "The Girl from Ipanema," "The Girl from Ipanema," to be about the boy from Cupertino. When she asked for some requests, Jobs called out a few. She concluded with a slow rendition of "Happy Birthday." Scully came to the stage to propose a toast to technology's foremost visionary. Wozniak also came up and presented Jobs with a framed copy of the Zoltar hoax from the 1977 West Coast Computer Fair, where the Apple II had been introduced. The venture capitalist Don Valentine marveled at the change in the decades since that time. He went from being a Ho Chi Minh lookalike who said never trust anyone over 30 to a person who gives himself a fabulous 30th birthday with Ella Fitzgerald, he said. Many people had picked out special gifts for a person who was not easy to shop for. Debbie Coleman, for example, found a first edition of F. Scott Fitzgerald. Many people had picked out special gifts for a person who was not easy to shop for. Debbie Coleman, for example, found a first edition of F. Scott Fitzgerald's The Last Tycoon, but Jobs, in an act that was odd yet not out of character, left all of the gifts in the hotel room. Wozniak and some of the Apple veterans who did not take to the goat cheese and salmon mousse that was served met after the party and went out to eat at a Denny's. It's rare that you see an artist in his 30s or 40s able to really contribute something amazing, Jobs said wistfully to the writer David Sheff, who published a long and intimate interview in Playboy the month he turned 30. Of course, there are some people who are innately curious for every little kids in their awe of life, but they're rare. The interview touched on many subjects, but Jobs' most poignant ruminations were about growing old and facing the future. That's a kind of thought that I was thinking when I just like with these past little like Michael Jackson attention influx or whatever you want to call it. But like some people stay forever little kids in their awe of life, but they're rare. As Mike, and I think that's why like he had such an impact is because it's like a pureness. that just exuded from bro. Yeah, it's crazy that he's just as famous, or not. Let me not say that. Not just as famous as Jesus, but like you know, he lying. Like a lot of people, like without the internet. But Jobs' most poignant ruminations were about growing old and facing the future. Your thoughts construct patterns like scaffoldings in your mind. You are really etching chemical patterns. In most cases, people get stuck in those patterns just like grooves in a record, and they never get out of them. Hmm. Okay, we might gotta read this part right here. I'll always stay connected with Apple. I hope that throughout my life, I'll sort of have that thread of my life and the thread of Apple weave in and out of each other like a tapestry. There may be a few years when I'm not there, but I'll always come back. If you want to live your life in a creative way as an artist, you have to not look back too much. You have to be willing to take whatever you've done and whoever you were and throw them away. The more the outside world tries to reinforce an image of you, the harder it is to continue to be an artist, which is why a lot of times artists have to say, bye, I have to go. I'm going crazy and I'm getting out of here. And they go and hibernate somewhere. Maybe later they reemerge a little differently. Butterflies, cocoons. But butterflies live shorter than us and we live longer. But it's like we think that because we live long, not like we only have to go through one metamorphosis. But it's like we live longer, so it's like we're more likely to have more metamorphosis. We're more like a snake skin. Every season or the particular season is like it's time to go ahead and metamorphosize. Like that word. um, Exodus. Exodus. Movement from Ja people. Y'all know about that Bob. Bob Marley. Andy Hertzfeld had taken a leave of absence after the Macintosh came out in 1984. He needed to recharge his batteries and get away from his supervisor Bob Belleville, whom he didn't like. One day he learned that Jobs had given out bonuses of up to $50,000 to engineers on the Macintosh team, so he went to Jobs to ask for one. Jobs responded that Belleville had decided not to give the bonuses to people who were on the leave or who were on leave. Hertzfeld later heard that the decision had actually been made by Jobs, so he confronted him. At first, Jobs equivocated. Then he said, "Well, let's assume what you are saying is true. How does that change things?" Hertzfeld said that if Jobs was withholding the bonus as a reason for him to come back, then he wouldn't come back as a matter of principle. Jobs relented, but it left Hertzfeld with a bad taste. When his leave was coming to an end, Hertzfeld made an appointment to have dinner with Jobs, and they walked from his office to an Italian restaurant a few blocks away. "I really want to return," he told Jobs, "but things seem really messed up right now." Jobs was vaguely annoyed and distracted, but Hertzfeld plunged ahead. "The software team is completely demoralized, and and has hardly done a thing for months. And Burrell is so frustrated that he won't last to the end of the year." At that point, Jobs cut him off. "You don't know what you're talking about," he said. "The Macintosh team is doing great, and I'm having the best time of my life right now. You're just completely out of touch." His stare was withering, but he also tried to look amused at Hertzfeld's assessment. "If you really believe that, I don't think that he think he playing poker. He just playing poker." The Macintosh team. If you really believe that, I don't think there's any way that I can come back. Hertzfeld replied gloomily. "The Mac team that I want to come back to doesn't even exist anymore." "The Mac team had to grow up, and so do you," Jobs replied. "I want you to come back, but if you don't want to, that's up to you. You don't matter as much as you think you do anyway." Hertzfeld didn't come back. By early 1985, Burrell Smith was also ready to leave. He had worried that it would be hard to quit if Jobs tried to talk him out of it. The reality distortion field was usually too strong for him to resist, so he plotted with Hertzfeld how he could break free of it. "I've got it," he told Hertzfeld one day. I know the perfect way to quit that will nullify the reality distortion field. So he's Darth Vader. So like he's just Darth Vader. Everybody need to devise schemes and plans to get through Steve. Wow. To nullify the reality distortion field. I was just walking into Steve's office, pull down my pants, and urinate on his desk. Steve is Darth Vader. That's how he's gonna nullify his reality distortion. Word. What did his friend say? I just walk into his office, pull down my pen, and urinate on his desk. What can he say to that? It's guaranteed to work. The betting on the Mac team was that even that was that even the betting on the Mac team was that even brave Burrell Smith would not have the gumption to do that. When he finally decided that he had to make his break, around the time of Jobs' birthday bash, he made an appointment to see Jobs. He was surprised to find Jobs smiling broadly when he walked in. Are you gonna do it? Are you really gonna do it? Jobs asked. He had heard about the plan. Woo. Smith looked at him. Do I have to? I'll do it if I have to. Jobs gave him a look, and Smith decided it wasn't necessary. So he resigned less dramatically and walked out on good terms. Good reality distortion right there. Wow. That's crazy. He was quickly followed by another of the great Macintosh engineers, Bruce Horn. When Horn went in to say goodbye, Jobs told him everything. Everything that's wrong with the Mac is your fault. Wow. Horn responded, well, actually, Steve, a lot of the things that are right with the Mac are my fault, and I had to fight like crazy to get those things in. You're right, admitted Jobs. I'll give you 15. You're right, admitted Jobs. I'll give you 15,000 shares to stay. When Horn declined the offer, Jobs showed his warmer side. Well, give me a hug, he said. So they hugged. Steve is losing it. What in the world? But the biggest news that month was the departure from Apple yet again of its co-founder Steve Wozniak. Dang. Wozniak was then quietly working as a mid-level engineer in the Apple II division, serving as a humble mascot of the roots of the company and staying as far away from management and corporate politics as he could. He felt with justification that Jobs was not appreciative of the Apple II, which remained the cash cow of the company and accounted for 70% of its sales at Christmas 1984. People in the Apple II group were being treated as very unimportant by the rest of the company. He later said this was despite the fact that the Apple II was by far the largest selling product in our company for ages and would be for years to come. He even roused himself to do something out of character. He picked up the phone one day and called Scully, berating him for lavishing so much attention on Jobs in the Macintosh division. Frustrated, Wozniak decided to leave quietly to start a new company that will make a universal remote control device he had invented. It will control your television, stereo, and other electronic devices with a simple set of buttons that you could easily program. He went to go make that controller click with Adam Sandler. It will control your easily program. He informed the head of engineering at the Apple II division that he didn't feel he was important enough to go out of channels and tell Jobs or Mercola. So Jobs first heard about it when the news leaked in the Wall Street Journal. In his earnest way, Wozniak had openly answered the reporter's questions when he called. That's crazy, Wise. He didn't want to go. He wasn't important enough to go out of the channels, but he's a co-founder, and he wasn't important enough because he didn't want to be a management or. All right. In his earnest way, Wozniak had openly answered the reporter's question when he called. Yes, he said he felt that Apple had been given short shrift to the Apple II division. Apple's direction had been horrendously wrong for 5 years, he said. Less than 2 weeks later, Wozniak and Jobs traveled together to the White House, where Ronald Reagan presented them with the first National Medal of Technology. The president quoted what President Rutherford Hayes had said when when first shown a telephone. An amazing invention, but who would ever want to use one? And then quipped, I thought at the time that he might be mistaken because of the awkward situation surrounding Wozniak's departure. Apple did not throw a celebratory dinner, so Jobs and Wozniak went for a walk afterward and ate at a sandwich shop. They chatted amiably, Wozniak recalled, and avoided any discussion of their disagreements. Wozniak wanted to make the parting amicable. It was his style, so he agreed to stay on as a part-time Apple employee at a $20,000 salary and represent the company at events and trade shows that could have been a graceful way to drift apart. That could have been a graceful way to drift apart. But Jobs could not leave well enough alone. One Saturday, a few weeks after they had visited Washington together, Jobs went to the new Palo Alto studios of Harmut Eslinger, whose company Frog Design had moved there to handle its design work for Apple. There he happened to see sketches that the firm had made for Wozniak's new remote control device, and he flew into a rage. Apple had a clause in its contract that gave it to that gave it the right to bar Frog Design from working on other computer related projects, and Jobs invoked it. I informed him, he recalled, that working with Woz wouldn't be acceptable to us. When the Wall Street Journal heard what happened, it got in touch with Wozniak, who, as usual, was open and honest. He said that Jobs was punishing him. Steve Jobs has a hate for me probably because of the things I said about Apple, he told the reporter. Jobs' action was remarkably petty, but it was also partly caused by the fact that he understood in ways that others did not that the look and style of a product served to brand it. A device that had Wozniak's name on it and used the same design language as Apple's product might be mistaken for something that Apple had produced. It's not personal, Jobs told the newspaper, explaining that he wanted to make sure that Wozniak's remote wouldn't look like something made by Apple. We don't want to see our design language used on other products. Woz has to find out. Woz has to find his own resources. He can't leverage off Apple's resources. We can't treat him specially. Jobs volunteered to pay for the work that the Fraud Design had already done for Wozniak, but even so, the executives at the firm were taken aback when Jobs demanded that they send him the drawings done for Wozniak or destroy them. They refused. Jobs had to send them a letter invoking Apple's contractual right. Herbert Pfeiffer, the design director of the firm, risked Jobs' wrath by publicly dismissing his claim that the dispute with Wozniak was not personal. It's a power play, Pfeiffer told the Journal. They have personal problems between them. Hertzfeld was outraged when he heard what Jobs had done. He lived about 12 blocks from Jobs, who sometimes would drop by on his walks. I got so furious about the Wozniak remote episode that when Steve next came over, I wouldn't let him in the house. Hertzfeld recalled, he knew he was wrong, but he tried to rationalize, and maybe in his distorted reality he was able to. Wozniak, always a teddy bear, even when annoyed, hired another design firm and even agreed to stay on Apple's retainer as a spokesman. Good one. He's a great guy. He's a great guy. Very good guy. Wow. Yeah, that's a crazy little segment right there. I think Icarus ends at 2:10. I am I'm on 194 right now. I'm gonna go ahead and call it, but Am I tripping or like what do y'all think? He blowing up. He going crazy. He said he gonna urinate on the desk. Other dude said something, you suck. Oh, everything wrong with McIntosh is your fault. He's like, nah, everything good is actually my fault. And I had to work hard to, even make sure that they stayed there. You right. $15,000 shares. Just stay. Nah, I'm cool, man. All right, give me a hug. He losing it. Is he he gotta be, bipolar or something. Or he just like to rock the boat or something. But Bob said, don't rock. Hold on. He said something. Don't rock my boat because I don't want my boat to be rocking. Yeah. But yeah, day 8 of becoming more well read. Again, if you're trying to become, or not even become anything, but like if you're just trying to read more, find out new things about whatever, just pull up a chair and tap in with me. Today is day 8. Day 9, I try to be back. Can't promise, but I'm gonna try.